I always wondered why Boruto and Shibai share so many similarities, like the horn on their head, the Jogan eye, the nature of their abilities, and even the portrayal of their strongest techniques. The fact that Shibai is the god of the verse and Boruto is the main protagonist would mean that the author is setting up a huge payoff with all these analogies. Till now you must have only heard about Kishimoto and Ikemoto's fascination with mythology and science fiction when it comes to writing their story. But today we will dive deep into such connections all the way from the Matrix movie to some religious mythology in order to prove that why Boruto and Shibai are indeed a singular existence. But let's first discuss the lesser known hints that I'm sure not many of you must have noticed. When it comes to the storytelling of Kishimoto, one thing has always been clear. Nothing in his plots is ever random, and every setup is a carefully crafted step in his master plan. Sure, there have been some unused setups in Naruto like the Akatsuki rings, the god of Hidan, Jashin, the lore of the Uzumaki clan, and much more. But we can't deny some setups were paid off really well too, like the Sharingan wielded by Kakashi, the mystery of Naruto's origin, Tobi's identity, and the profound rivalry which turned out to be an endless cycle of reincarnation. But when it comes to Boruto, his connection to Shibai won't be a simple or similar case of fateful rebirth. Rather, the hints which put both of these characters on the same spectrum are going to be paid off very differently. The reason I believe it's not Shibai reincarnating himself as a mortal to fulfill some greater purpose is simply because it won't make that much narrative sense. A retelling of Ashura and Indra is far from the truth, as Shibai has the power over the whole universe, at least over everything which is connected through chakra. He could simply use omnipotence to create a desired reality where everything goes according to his plan. So why did he need to reincarnate as Boruto anyway? Well, the first major hint that you must have certainly overlooked comes from chapter 79, in which Boruto and Kawaki switch places as a result of Aida's omnipotence. When Momoshiki was describing the Shinjutsu of Shinjutsus, he said something about the people who are immune to it. That I believe is the key to understanding Boruto and Shibai's oneness. It was revealed that Otsutsukis for some reasons are immune to the divine spell of omnipotence. At first it may seem like this detail was given to explain why Boruto and Kawaki would be unaffected by this spell, but if you think about it, immunity to omnipotence wasn't merely about being unaffected by Aida, rather it was also about the divine manifestations of the god Otsutsukis as well. In other words, the Otsutsukis do not get affected by whatever an Otsutsuki god materializes with the power of omnipotence. You may feel like it's not that deep, but if you remember this special panel from the first volume, there was a description of an Otsutsuki god who belonged to a universe which doesn't exist anymore. He seems to have created the present universe of Naruto and all the events that are currently happening in the story. While it's hard to say whether this was a reference to Shibai or some other supreme deity, one thing is clear that he was an Otsutsuki who belonged to another universe, and there's a chance that he could have himself destroyed that universe to create a new one through omnipotence. However, the twist lies in the fact that all his fellow Otsutsuki members would have seamlessly transitioned to the new universe. The reason being their immunity from omnipotence, which preserves them from the wrath of the Otsutsukis who reach the supreme form. Now think of it this way, even though Shibai became an Otsutsuki god, he is still powerless against his own clan, and they won't get affected by his divine spell. So if he desires to fix his clan by putting an end to their dreadful cycle of destruction, he wouldn't be able to achieve that on his own and would require a divine medium to purposefully orchestrate his cosmic plan. And that's how Boruto was born, a singularity of fate who can help the Otsutsuki god to achieve the desired outcome. Talking about this concept of singularity, it could be the second major hint for us to deduce the divine plan of Shibai. According to Kashin Koji, singularity of fate refers to a pivotal unavoidable event or a destined individual whose actions can dramatically alter the course of history. Right now, Boruto, Aida, and Koji himself are the individuals with this power to bend the future. But if you think about it, Shibai must have been a singularity of fate as well, meaning his actions determined a lot of events that we are currently witnessing in the story. However, the most interesting part comes from the fact that Shibai deliberately left his body behind while ascending to a higher plane of existence. Looking at how his corpse was used by Amaru to create multiple cyborgs, there is no way he wasn't aware of this possibility, considering he possessed the power of prescience as well. So what is the reason behind Shibai's ascension was to pave the way for a specific future, which was only possible by him leaving his mortal remains behind. This means he himself chose Amado to do the experiments which eventually provided a unique shinjutsu to different cyborgs. And looking at the big role that his DNA has played in the story, whether it's by the means of either making the Kama duo switch places, Code awakening the Shinjus, or Koji foreseeing the future, Shibai seems to be playing a 4D chess game as he pre-planned all these events a long time ago. If you think about it, Boruto would have never gotten so strong if he had never met Koji, and the only reason he met Koji was because of Aida's omnipotence. The thing which pushed Aida to awaken the divine spell was also the DNA of Shibai, and the reason Boruto has gotten so strong is to defeat the Shinjus, who are also by no coincidence an outcome of Shibai's Shinjutsu reacting with the Ten Tails. So what could be the purpose behind Shibai making Boruto go through all these hardships, which are fatefully fueled by his own divine DNA? Is it because he wants him to reform the Otsutsuki clan and end their cycle of destruction, or is there some major antagonistic figure that he wants to get rid of with the help of Boruto? Well, the final theory of this video will definitely answer that question for us, but let's first check out the Matrix-inspired possibility, which would provide us some clarity on how Boruto and Shibai could arguably be the same entity. In the latest trans interview of the authors, Ikemoto revealed that he was heavily inspired by the Matrix movie while giving his own spin to the story. The reason it's a vital detail is because a number of plots were extended by Ikemoto, and the original draft of Kishimoto was supposed to turn out really differently. Like Code was initially planned to die early, Kashin Koji's role was reimagined, and Amado's exile to Konoha was also a plot addition that came later. I will also give my theory on how Kishimoto had envisioned the story, where it all was supposed to end under 15 volumes, so stay tuned. All in all, I believe Ikemoto was behind most of the Shinjutsu plot and its effects on the whole story. This means he must have a hand in the creation of Shibai too, considering how he highlighted the Matrix as an inspiration in the interview, which explores the plots like programming the reality. So here is how I believe he could have connected the dots between the protagonist and the god of Otsutsuki. In the Matrix, humans live in a simulated world while their real selves exist in pods connected to a system that projects their consciousness into a digital reality. Similarly, in Boruto, the universe can be seen as a matrix created with omnipotence. It's a space where mortals and lesser beings exist, bound by time, space, and physical limitations. I hope you remember the title of chapter 75, where Shibai was introduced for the very first time. It was called the Domain of Gods, and I believe it's an actual realm in the story, which acts as an equivalent of the real world from the Matrix movie. A realm beyond mortality and physicality, where the superior beings exist in their true and unbounded forms. Now here's where this gets really interesting. What if Boruto is not just an ordinary human who turned off Otsutsuki, but a manifestation of Shibai's essence within the illusionary world? He could be the projection, or let's say the reflection of Shibai or Otsutsuki within his own matrix. This would explain how Boruto and the god of Otsutsuki are technically the same person. Boruto could be an impression of Shibai that he's using to interact with the illusionary world in an attempt to defeat the agents in this universe, which are his own fellow clan members, the Otsutsukis. The reason I believe they are a representation of the agents in the story is due to their immunity to omnipotence, and the responsibility to overthrow their destructive systems has fallen to Boruto. Well, this Matrix theory also explains the Jogan and its importance in Boruto's life. But before we dive into that topic, make sure you hit that subscribe button to never miss any future uploads. First and foremost, the Shinjutsu of Shibai is like a tool to reshape the Matrix type reality, but the effects are only applicable to those who are inside the illusionary world, as all of them are connected through chakra, and the god of Otsutsuki is above this mortal system. Now as for the Jogan, it could act as a divine lens, serving as a metaphysical connection between the illusionary reality of the physical world and the domain of gods, much like the neural jack in the Matrix, which bridges the simulated reality and the real world. Now a thing that I have seen under almost every video of mine whenever I talk about this dojutsu is a vocal minority criticizing the idea of using anime only stuff to craft theories simply because they do not exist in the manga. In simple words, they do not believe the Jogan is canon, so they get offended every time this eye is mentioned. But after doing some research, I found an interview of Ikemoto from 2018 where he mentioned how the anime and the manga are pursuing different continuities but will soon converge at some point. He also used some examples to explain this dual part development of Boruto, like Dragon Ball Super, whose manga and anime versions are developing independently but reaching the same narrative conclusion. I will link down all the sources below and you can read them yourselves. Traditionally, the manga serves as the foundation, with the anime closely adapting its storyline. In Boruto, much like Dragon Ball Super, the manga and anime are developed independently as they explore unique creative arcs, yet are bound to converge at the same narrative conclusion. This makes it clear that no matter whether it's the appearance of the Jogan or the post-battle sequence sequence of Momoshiki and Boruto, which has different dialogue and elements involved. Both the versions are part of a unified storyline that will remain largely consistent across both the continuities as they progress towards the conclusion. Now that we are done with Boruto and Shibai's identity being the two sides of the same coin, let's now dig some correlations from the Hindu mythology to take the essence of their connection one step further. The story of Naruto had deeply blended the themes, concepts and symbolisms from various mythology and folktales around the world, from the Japanese, Chinese and Hindu mythology to the folklores of real-life ninjas. Kishimoto had handpicked some rich elements to craft the best story possible, and now that we are in a sequel, there is no way we won't be seeing such symbolism again. This brings us to a possible narrative from the Hindu mythology, which could help us to understand the connection between Boruto and Shibai Otsutsuki a lot better. They seem to mirror the cosmic balance of Vishnu and Shiva, the two seemingly opposing forces, which are inherently connected. They are renowned as two of the most revered deities, but rather than just being the mythical gods, they also serve as timeless symbols. Vishnu, the preserver, is the protector of the universe, while Shiva, the destroyer, represents transformation and ultimate transcendence. Now take that concept and place it into the world of Boruto. Here the protagonist becomes Vishnu, the one fighting to preserve balance, while Shibai Otsutsuki emerges as a Shiva-like figure, the destroyer who has transcended all the mortal limits. The similarities between both the entities only get crazier from this point. Shibai Otsutsuki stands as the mythological deity of the Otsutsuki clan, a being who has transcended to a plane where there is no requirement of a physical body. He has devoured countless worlds, erased many civilizations, and ascended to a state of divine existence. While some serious resemblance to Shiva can be found here, the destroyer deity who is responsible for ending cycles of creation to allow for renewal and rebirth, the twist is that his destruction is not chaotic and malevolent, but a necessary act to maintain cosmic balance and evolution. Shiva's Tandava, the dance of destruction, symbolizes the clearing away of ignorance, ego and stagnation, paving the way for a new beginning. Now when you compare this to Shibai and the Matrix theory, the Otsutsuki god doesn't seem to be necessarily evil. Rather, it's the moves and steps that he has taken which make him seem like an evil entity. But just like how Shiva had his own reasons, the same must apply to Shibai. What if the only reason he attained godhood was to end the cycle of destruction among the Otsutsukis, giving the immunity of the clan from omnipotence? There was no way for Shibai to reform their systems, so maybe that's how Boruto entered the picture, and you'll be surprised to know the similarity that he shares with Vishnu the Preserver. The protagonist, much like the mythological deity, represents the journey of maintaining balance. His mission is not to transcend, but to find harmony in the mortal and the divine world. But wait, doesn't that mean Boruto and Shibai are two different entities, which kind of contradicts the point of this video, where we focus on them being one? Well, I think Kishimoto or Ikemoto, whoever came up with the concept of connecting Boruto with Shibai, has really done their homework well. The reason I'm saying so is because there is actually a concept in Hindu philosophical tradition known as Advaita Vedanta, or simply non-dualism. It highlights the unity of all existence by teaching that the dualities of the world, such as good and evil or Shiva and Vishnu, are just illusions that mask the ultimate reality known as the infinite Brahman. Shiva symbolizes the end of a cycle, paving the way for new beginnings, while Vishnu sustains and preserves the world during its course. Together they represent the ultimate cosmic balance, reflecting the non-dualistic truth that every role fulfills the same ultimate purpose. Now take this concept and use it to understand the case of Boruto and Shibai, and everything will be crystal clear. On the surface, Boruto and Shibai appear distinct. One is a mortal boy fighting for survival, and the other is a transcendent god. But this duality is an illusion, or let's say Maya, which is masking their inherent oneness. Boruto's potential to fully harness Otsutsuki power signifies that he is not separate from Shibai, but a continuation of his essence. And this is why Momoshiki pointed out his Otsutsuki power back in episode 65, a scene which was done pretty differently in the manga. Now that we have come this far in the video, there is something that I would like to address before we head over to the last part. I think the anime's unique timeline is solely used as a medium to show us the newer ideas of the writers that they came up with after Ikemoto took over the scripts. This explains why Momoshiki's conversation from episode 65 features Boruto with the Jogan. It made more sense for him to have the eye activated while facing the Otsutsuki, as it symbolizes his connection with the Otsutsuki god, an idea that the writers developed during the 1-year time frame leading up to the anime adaptation of chapter 10. Considering it takes 4 to 6 months for the creation of a single anime episode, the Jogan and its role, as well as the Shinjutsu plot, could have been completed when episode 65 went into production, almost a year after the release of its manga counterpart. Now here's a theory that I'm sure you will find interesting. Judging by the fact that the script of the story juggled between Kishimoto and Ikemoto before the whole Beyond Ishiki plot was figured out, also counting Momoshiki's meetup with Boruto being portrayed in a very unique way in the adaptation, what could have been the original Blue Eyes before Ikemoto had came up with Shinjutsu? We know the Blue Eyes prophecy has been attributed to Aida since she activated omnipotence and took everything away from Boruto. But if you think about it, this scene where Momoshiki tells his prophecy likely existed before Ikemoto's expansion of the story, considering the fact that an animator talked about the Jogan and its significance shortly after the release of episode 15, and the fact that he also mentioned the writers haven't figured it all out yet, exactly 4 months after the release of the chapter in which the prophecy was revealed. I'm sure the entire Shinjutsu lore wasn't finalized at this point, so what in the world was the original Blue Eyes prophecy? Well, what if I told you the answer again lies in the France interview? Don't believe me? Well, the writers talked about a major death, and I think we already know who that was. The Blue Eyes taking everything away from Boruto was originally supposed to be Naruto's death during the Ishiki fight. It must have been then switched to Kurama by Ikemoto after he found a way to bring him back, alongside the Shibai and Shinjutsu plot. The death of Naruto may have seemed like a golden chance to Momoshiki to take over the control of Boruto's body, but surprisingly, he didn't let him take over. Now, before you tell me the karma progression was at 82% and it doesn't make sense for Kawaki to kill Boruto in the theoretical draft that I just mentioned, well, what if I said the conclusion to the original vision of Kishimoto was the karma itself? The reason I think so is because just a chapter after Ishiki's death, Kawaki had asked Boruto to implant his karma on Code for reviving himself, and as the France interview confirms his early death in the original story, I believe that's how the story was actually supposed to end under 60 chapters. After losing Naruto and not giving up on his consciousness, Boruto would have agreed on Kawaki's plan to find Code and implant a karma on him. The mission would have turned successful, making Boruto revive in Code's body, marking an end to the original vision of Kishimoto. No cyborgs, no Shinjutsu, no godly beings, just the true way the author wanted to end Boruto. Well, it would have certainly backfired, since the death of Naruto would have amplified the hate that the series gets. So let's thank Ikemoto for coming up with a better vision, where Boruto is a reflection of an Otsutsuki god. And now let's move on to the final theory. This possibility is a massive one, and could introduce not just the final villain of the story, but also a climax that no one expected. I hope you remember the missing Otsutsuki panels, the one shown in the Ten Tails dimension, the destroyed sigils whose origin and history remain unknown. Well, what if one of these two missing Otsutsukis was Shibai, who came to the planet Earth nearly 1,000 years before Ishiki and Kaguya? Now the real deal is the pair of Shibai who could have not attained godhood and might be an equivalent of devil in the lore. Think of that missing creature as the Lucifer of the Otsutsuki mythology. Just like how Lucifer rebelled against God in Christian theology, he could have been a lifelong partner of Shibai who ultimately betrayed him. While Shibai ascended to godhood, maintaining cosmic order, his pair chose the path of chaos, creating his own cult of destruction in the illusionary world. There is a likelihood for this missing Otsutsuki to be the god of Hidan, Jashin Otsutsuki, and you can check out this video of mine to find out more about this theory. But the analogy that I'm about to point out again hints at Boruto and Shibai's non-dualism. If the Lucifer theory from the Christian lore is true, then I believe Ikemoto could have taken some more inspiration from the same religious text while penning down the legacy of his protagonist. Just as in Christian theology, where God takes human form to walk among mortals, Shibai as the supreme Otsutsuki god could have manifested his essence into Boruto. Unlike the typical Otsutsuki practice of devouring worlds, Shibai might see this human form as a medium to fulfill his ultimate goal, which is to confront the existential threats such as the chaos of the Otsutsuki system and the potential fallen figures like Jashin. And that gives us the third theory to conclude Boruto and Shibai are indeed one. But these are just speculations, and you can drop your own takes in the comments to get featured in some of my upcoming videos. Also check out these videos for a greater dose of entertainment. I will see you next time.